I cannot hear you, Stephen. Is it me or is it?
I
I
don't have
heard
the
you.
volume
Oh,
up and the
oh,
volume's not up enough on here. Hang on.
now I can hear you.
Here we
Thanks.
go. Better?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Thank you for my tea too, by the way. All right, welcome here, everybody. Glad you're here. That's interesting. No, sorry, I'm distracted because there's an interesting symbol next to somebody's name here that I've never seen on a Zoom call before. I have no idea what it means. So hopefully your things are working. Anyway, welcome. We'll get started here with tonight's inner hour. Quick reminder in case you miss any or for some reason want to see one again. One by One's YouTube channel has all of the, it's a repository of all the inner hour recordings from this year. And it's free. And all you have to do is find it. Which if you don't know how to do it, email me or something and we'll send you the link on how to find One by One. So Shabbat Shalom. We need some candle stickies in this, I think, Ani. It doesn't want to sit very still. So let me put you right there.
Please try not to set the office on fire.
Okay. We'll make
Or
it.
yourself.
Yeah, that too. Someday you can tell them the story about the retreat we did up at Camp Mac. Anyway, yes. So, first of all, I generally don't start with announcements, but I'm going to start with a couple of brief ones tonight, just because I'm concerned that I'll forget by the end and we won't do it. So, first of all, happy birthday to Nechama, because today is her birthday. So, happy birthday. And here we go. We'll do this. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Nechama. Happy birthday to you. And all of you can sing along even though she can't hear. Or you can unmute your mics if you want, actually. It's like no cosmic law that something awful will happen if you unmute your mic. So you can sing along if you want. I'm going to do it one more time, just in case anybody wants to. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Nahama. Happy birthday, we love you. So if anybody wants to leave your mic unmuted and say happy birthday, you're welcome to do that.
Happy birthday.
Yes. So also, Nahama is going to be having a surgery coming up. And so any prayers, for successful, speedy recovery, all of those things that need to go along with surgery, that you want to share with her, send her, pray about in the intervening, week here ahead, that all goes well and her recovery goes well. I'm sure that would be appreciated. And I won't say more about it because I know she's not real fond of drawing attention to herself. But anyway, we wish you well with all that, and we'll be praying for you too. So the other thing I want to announce, just so I don't forget later, is that this is again local. For those of you in the local area, many of you are, but obviously many of you are not. Several people have been here locally in town have been asking me to do a series on Jesus. The last couple times I've given a talk at Unity, I've talked about him because Unity is their presentation of who they are is that it's based on principles that Jesus taught, and so I did my last two talks on that, and I've had several people for a long time ask me to do a more in-depth series. So I'm going to offer one. I'm going to offer a more in-depth series on Jesus. In-depth meaning 4 whole classes, which actually, I mean, you could do years on this guy, but 4 classes that will try to hit on some of the major historical aspects that people tend not to hear, on his life and his family and his teachings, and then a kind of so what and what do we do with all that now kind of a thing. So unlike all of my other classes to date so far, this one is actually going to have a set fee because there's a lot of preparation material that goes into it and whatnot. And I also want to make sure that there's a number of people really committed to doing the whole series, all 4, because they won't be like a standalone class like most of our stuff is. They will build on one another, and if you miss like the first one, you're going to miss a lot. And if you miss the second one, you're going to miss more, obviously. So you need to be able to come to all of them to come to them. But anyway, that information is going out through one by one, and also will be in the Unity emails and stuff. If you want to know more about that, contact us. If you don't see the information somehow, we'll send it to you, or if you see it and have questions, get in touch and we'll answer all that. But for those of you, if any of you here have been interested in that, it's going to be available locally. And then if that goes well, there might be a subsequent one that deals in more depth with things we didn't get to in the first series. And at some point, I may do an online thing with that for people who are out of area. So that's the new news, so to speak. Okay, so that's it for now. Back to the inner hour. So, okay, since this is just between us and it's not really, on the web, even though it is on the web, I have to tell you this curious little icon that appeared next to somebody's name in the participants list that looked almost like an exclamation point, but not exactly, and was very intricate and interesting. It was actually a speck on the computer screen of something that had splashed on. So that's not a new Zoom icon at all. All right, time to get serious. Here we go. So the readings tonight are one of those thematic ones that we do. These are from the Bible again. And this is a topic that I don't think I have ever given any talks or presentations on ever that I can recall. If I did, it was a really long time ago when I was young. Anyway, the topic is the future. So I have a small handful of pretty short readings from the Bible in different places about that, about what is said about the future in the Bible. And it's not something that we talk about very often in spiritual circles, because in mystical spiritual circles, we tend to talk much more about the present, almost exclusively, but we talk a lot about the present and the importance of being in the present, because that's where the presence is always, is in the present. But the and the past is with us, obviously, in terms of things we've been trained to believe or not believe, and how we still carry a lot of that with us. Injuries or wounds, emotional or physical, that we may have collected over the years that we still carry in some form. Values that we learned, so the past is with us as well. The future is, if it's talked about, tends to be, or often maybe, is talked about in anxious terms, like worrying about, will our money last through retirement? Will I get healthy? Or maybe if you're younger, or maybe even our age, will I finally find somebody? Will I whatever, all the will I's, what wills, what ifs, that are future oriented, that we imagine or fantasize about, sometimes in very good ways, sometimes in very anxious or fearful ways. And whatever we believe and however strong our faith is, my life experience so far in myself and observing others is that the truth is none of us know what the future is going to be. And we don't know what's going to unfold or how it's going to unfold or when it's going to unfold. We may have some inklings, or certainly have certain hopes or certain things we hope not for, but we don't really know. We don't know what the future holds. And again, without getting into this particular aspect of it too much, because of people that are talking to me now or emailing me or emailing with questions or concerns or whatever, because of the tremendous political upheavals and struggles and transformations and dramatic occurrences that have occurred over the last few weeks in this country, a lot of uncertainty about what our future holds based on the outcome of all that, and what the future of the world holds based on the outcome of America, because like it or not, whether you think it should be or shouldn't be, or wherever you stand on all that, it's at the forefront of everything that happens in the world. It's a very central player in what occurs in the world. So there kind of is a lot of energy about the future right now. And I thought maybe as a way to offset some of that chaotic energy, both the hopeful and the stressful, but just kind of a more mellow energy to the future idea, I'd share a few things with you from the Bible tonight. So this is one that over the years has been important to me, particularly when I've been facing difficult things and my future has felt very uncertain at a personal level. So this is from the prophet Jeremiah. It's 29:11. I know the plans that I have for you, declares the Lord. They are plans for prosperity and not disaster. I will give you a future with hope. So that's one I personally have found encouraging over the years, especially when I'm in a space where I don't really believe that. Um, so if we believe or even consider that this divine oneness that we call God, if we consider that perhaps this divine wisdom, this divine God, this divinity itself, was speaking to the prophet, then it's saying that there is a plan for our life, and that what's planned is not disaster, but that what is planned is abundance and prosperity, and that it's a hopeful future for us. So I think that's a good message to hang on to right now. If you find yourself especially troubled by things in your personal life that you're facing, or just the world climate right now is distressing to you. I don't know how it couldn't be, frankly, but perhaps you're beyond me. Those things don't affect you anymore. But anyway, this is then from Psalm 37:37. Observe the blameless person and look to those who are upright, for it is the person of peace who will have a future. It's an interesting set of ideas, all in one little sentence. To look to the blameless people. Another word here, by the way, that Hebrew could be translated as is innocent. It's another way that could be accurately said. Observe the innocent or the blameless person. Gandhi, as we talked about last week, would have probably said harmless, the harmless person. And look to those who are upright. It is the person of peace who will have a future. So now we have kind of a conditional thing here, that people who are innocent, people who are upright, meaning basically moral, from my understanding, people who are at peace with themselves, and people who work to help create an energy of peace instead of an energy of dissension or violence or anger, among others. Those are the people that will have a future, because again, biblically the idea, whether we personally agree or not, biblically the idea is pretty clear in both the Jewish Bible and the Christian New Testament, that the promise or the hope or the possibility, at least, is that someday the world will be better, and people will have a more peaceful, prosperous existence than we are seeing, or maybe than humanity's ever seen, perhaps. This is also from Psalm 37. It's a different verse. This is also thematic, particularly in the Old Testament or the Jewish Bible. Wrongdoers will altogether be destroyed, and the future for the wicked will be eliminated. That's something that's also in the New Testament in a couple of places, particularly the book of Revelation, and in a couple of very small sections of Jesus' teachings, that there will come a reckoning of some kind. And when this reckoning comes, that which is called evil, hara, the bad or the evil one, in Hebrew writing, that there will come a time when that will no longer be allowed to afflict humanity, and its reign, so to speak, will be ended. And whatever happens to it or the practitioners of it, somehow the good people will be spared from that and not afflicted by that anymore. So this is one of those kinds of statements that is made throughout the Bible. This is now from Proverbs 23:17. Never let your heart envy sinners. Instead, live in awe of the Lord always, for certainly there is a future, and your hope will not be cut off. Again, lots of assurances, which is kind of my idea for tonight. Don't envy the sinners. Not a term I know a lot of us probably use anymore these days. Prevalent in both Jewish and Christian Bibles, but not prevalent in so much in mystical spiritual circles. So you can put a different word in there if you like, but the idea basically is don't envy bad people who have good things. How's that? Don't envy people who cheat and prosper from it, people who are immoral and get power and influence and prestige from it. Don't envy people who lie to you or us all the time and never are called to account for it, never have consequences for it that we can see, and somehow seem to actually be enhanced through their corruption in their lives. Don't envy that. And also, it doesn't say this, but I'm adding, and don't become bitter because of that. But instead, live in awe of divinity itself. Live in awe of the Lord always, because there will be a future, and our hopes will not be cut off. So, again, one more kind of soothing or reassuring, maybe, tone. And for all of the times in the Bible that the prophets admonish or chastise or become actually quite harsh with sometimes, including Yeshua, he could do that too. There are numerous places where there's kind of a soft-spoken assurance of God's care for us, excuse me, and providence for us. And that whether we see it now or not, whether we understand it now or not, that things will unfold and work out in a way that might surprise us for the good. So the Good Samaritan story, which I've talked about before, but just briefly in how that relates here. The Samaritans at the time who were Jewish, but worshipped on a different place, Mount Gerizim instead of Mount Zion, had a different Jewish practice than most of the Jews in Jerusalem. Anyway, they were adversaries, and they didn't get along at all. Those two groups, the Samaritans and the southern Jews, did not get along at all. And they both said, the other people are the problem, and they're terrible, and they're evil, and you should have nothing to do with them. Words we're hearing now about lots of different groups from different groups. They're the problem, they're the evil ones, they're the terrible ones, they're the ones that should be done away with. You should believe in me, trust me. That was happening way back then. And one of the unexpected goods was in this story that Yeshua told, which had other more important points, but one of the points of this Good Samaritan story was, here's this Samaritan who's badly beaten and injured and left for dead, and by all accounts probably was pretty sure he was going to die. And the person that saved him was a Jerusalem Jew, the people he despised and hated and thought were terrible. That's the one that saved him. So I'm sure that for him, that was a life-changing moment of how can good come from this guy? How can this guy, this group that we all hate, that we all know is terrible, that we all know are awful, how can good come from this one? And that's the one that saved him. So in our today, our prejudices or our animosity that we hold towards someone else, it's one thing if that's based on personal experience. Somebody does something to you or your loved ones that's terrible, emotionally terrible, financially terrible, physically terrible, intentionally. I mean, not by accident. They do something really hurtful to profit themselves and damage you or your family in some real physical way or real emotional way or whatever way it is. That's really awful. And you have animosity or distrust or anger against them. That's one thing. And there are spiritual tools for working with that within yourself. But that's what is often called in the Bible righteous anger. There's a reason for that. There was a willful causation to that. But if we're honest, many of us, and certainly many in our world, hold very, very, very strong feelings of animosity towards certain groups that we don't know at all. We've never met one of them, or probably haven't. We don't know the individuals, perhaps, if there are individuals involved. They've never interacted directly with your family. They've never had dinner with you in your home. We don't even know them, and we have this hostility toward them because of what other people have told us about them, or what we imagine about them. So, which is a whole different scenario. And that's pretty much what the Samaritan and the Jew thing was back then. So it wasn't that this guy had been treated so terribly by other Jews. It was that that's what he'd been taught to believe. And then here comes one of these bad guys who ends up saving him, and saving him at his own expense even. So it's a good reminder to us, especially in these turbulent times, to not just be swayed by strong populist movements of one kind or another to get us to have attitudes towards certain things or people or groups, but to really stay focused on that awe of God, and then to watch with that eye, and to see what plays out, because the truth of who somebody is will be borne out in what they do, not in what they say or what they pretend, but in what they do. Okay, so 2 more, then we'll meditate. This is Proverbs 24:14. Know that the wisdom of God is for your soul, and if you find it, there will be a future. So I think that's both individual and collective. I think that's for us personally, when we begin to get in touch with that soul wisdom, or our own soul, or that own divine essence in us, and begin to really listen to that, pay heed to that in our lives, then there definitely is a future for us, and it's a much brighter future than if we don't pay attention to that. And I think it's also a collective message that there will be a good future, even though it doesn't say those words. I think it's fair to interpret it as there will be a good future collectively if we do find that wisdom for our souls and in our souls, and begin to pay heed to that, and that there will be not so good a future if we don't, and who knows? I mean, perhaps even no future if we don't. There have been periods where lots of things have been wiped out before, and who's to say, we're not going to be one of them. So I think the spiritual awakenings that are going on, that are very individual and may seem like they only impact the individual, actually, I believe, can't demonstrate this, but I believe that ripple effect goes out and really does actually help to counteract a lot of the insanity in the world, and really offer it a different way, a different way of being. So the last one is from the New Testament. All of these have been Jewish Bible. This is from the New Testament, 1 Timothy 6:18. This is someone writing a letter to Timothy, who was a follower of, actually Paul, but also a follower of Jesus, what he understood of Jesus anyway. So he's writing to this, Timothy was a very young man compared to the age of most of the people in the movement at that time. And so he's writing to Timothy about what Timothy should do in his own community of people with the people with whom he lived. Instruct them to do good, to become rich in doing good works, to always be generous and ready to share their resources, to store up for themselves the treasure of having a good foundation which will build the future. And that in so doing all of this, they will grasp that which is truly life. So I'm going to read that one more time. Instruct them to do good. So I think that's something we're all trying to do and trying to encourage people around us to do. To become rich in good works. It doesn't mean get rich. It doesn't say get rich through doing good works. Become rich, spiritually abundant, through acts of service and kindness, through compassion, through doing good works. To be generous, and to always be ready to share their resources. Well, certainly we're seeing that in our one-by-one community here and in the Unity community here, and hopefully you all are seeing it elsewhere in your communities, whatever you're involved in, where people are helping each other. People are helping people who are having surgery or after surgery, people who have lost their jobs, people who are ill. That the community is connected not just for spiritual study, but connected heart to heart in their real lives and helping each other out. So I think that's what this is talking about. And to store up for themselves the treasure of a good foundation to build their future. So again, this having a strong spiritual foundation is what builds a good future in many of the Bible texts, like the ones I've just shared. But then the last sentence is one that really speaks to me, the last part of the sentence, so that in doing so, they may take hold of or grasp that which is truly life. Because for me, I know for many of you personally, because we've had these kind of conversations, but for me, living that way, living with that attitude, living in a community that supports those kind of values. I don't mean a secular community necessarily. That would be great too, but I specifically mean a spiritual community, an intentional spiritual community where those values are upheld, and promoted. And if your secular community does that too, even better. But for me, living like that, that's what creates a fulfilling and meaningful life. A life without loving connection, a life without compassion, a life without good works and kindness and forgiveness, a life without sharing our resources with one another when we're in need. What kind of a life is that? So I think that's an important little piece, is that they were not just about doing good works. They were not just about spiritual understanding. They were about the way Yeshua is teaching us to live is a way that will enable us to live a full, meaningful, abundant life, which is, what I want. And I think probably what most people want, whether they ever articulate it to themselves that way or not. I think it's a innately held desire of the human spirit to find or create that kind of life. So, all right. We'll just begin to be quiet and move into a time of meditation together then. So just kind of let go of all that and bring your attention inside to that place, wherever you really feel most connected to that boundless essence that is at the core of who you are. That thing that we call soul usually. And begin to just, many if not all of you are familiar with that now. You've meditated or prayed enough or learned enough that you're finding inside a place where you can connect with the part of you that is not the body, is not born when you're born and does not die when you die. The part of you that God created, this divine essence, this spark, this soul, this consciousness of life that is in you. And find that place where you most feel connected to that. And if you ever have difficulty feeling connected to it, then just start focusing on people that you love in your life and moments where you've experienced the reality of love in your life. Solitary moments, perhaps in nature or in prayer and meditation. Intimate moments between you and a beloved, or between you and a child or a close friend. Group moments, perhaps in a spiritual setting. Because love is at the core of this divine essence. And so if we have difficulty remembering it or connecting to it, calling into our hearts and minds moments of love and souls whom we love will help us to rekindle the awareness of, oh, yeah, love, that's it, and reconnect. Not that we're disconnected, but become reaware, reactivate, if you will, our connection with that divine part of ourself. It's quite easy to lose sight of in the world. And to this time, right now, for the next several minutes, in this period of meditation, to focus on connecting to that. So again, it's just a little bit of assistance. You can just move on to your own silence whenever you're ready, but just another few moments of assistance for whoever wants it. Use your faculty of imagination for a moment to imagine what you would feel like if you were living fully conscious of being that divine light, of being that divine love in individualized expression, of being an extension of all that God is, all that the divine is. What if you could somehow hold that in your consciousness and see your life from that consciousness? How would your thinking change? How you think about yourself and others? How you think about God and the world? How would that change? How would your attitude change about life in general? How would your way of talking change and the words you use? How would that consciousness affect all those emotional scars and wounds that you still carry? And how would your physical body feel to have that light radiating without resistance through it? How would your health change? And how would the way you relate to people around you change? And lastly, just imagine as a doorway into the actual experience of what it would be like this moment to step more fully into that consciousness and to embrace that deeply indwelling, boundless divinity at your very core. And let us sit in silence with that for a few minutes. Let's just slowly begin to bring our attention back once more. Over time I've learned, no matter what I'm feeling, that the truth of life is never-ending being, and I think it's time I let go. In my darkest hours, when fear is overwhelming, there is still a light deep within me glowing, and I know that light is you. On the wings of love, our souls can fly over the deepest of nights. There is such relief in knowing we're forgiven, and I find such peace when love is what I'm living. I'd have been so lost without you. On the wings of love, your soul and mine, living as one beyond time. Over time I've learned So, thank you for joining me tonight. I hope that your week starts off really well and that it continues to get better. I appreciate you spending this hour with me. For those of you like Nahama or others who have special wonderful things coming up like birthdays, or special challenging things coming up like surgery or other changes that you might be facing, may you be blessed with strength through them all, and may you know that there is a future that is hopeful and bright, and that future is really possible. So thank you again for all of your kind attention. We're ending a couple minutes early tonight, but you have 2 extra minutes to do whatever you like with. How about that? So thank you for joining me, and I'll see some of you this week locally here, and the rest of you hope to see you again next Friday. So until then, God bless. I'm going to end the recording and then we'll close out for the night. Thank you all.